Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new video. So a while ago now I made a video talking all about Avery's equipment, what she has, what it's used for, and I thought it was about time to do a bit of an updated version of that video because some things are still the same but some things have definitely changed. So I thought in this video I would take you around the house, show you what equipment Avery has and also where we keep it, how we store it and what it's used for Avery. Now I will just throw in a little bit of a disclaimer here. Obviously every child is completely different. Just because these things work for Avery does not mean they would work for another child. But for reference, Avery is 2.5 years old and she does have severe HIE, which is a hypoxic brain injury. She also has severe cerebral palsy, dystonia and epilepsy. She is also G-tube fed and has severe reflux. So she's got quite the list of conditions and we're kind of in that grey area at the moment where Avery definitely does need equipment and she's definitely going to need equipment, more and more equipment as she gets older. But as it stands, she is very small, so there is kind of a limit on how much we can actually get for her, particularly on the NHS because of their requirements. Avery is roughly around 10 kilograms the last time we had her weighed. She's probably just a little bit over that now, so she is still quite small. But I thought this video would be good to have here on my channel for informational purposes and for any of you that may find it helpful. I think equipment is definitely one of those things that can be quite overwhelming, especially in the early days, and I still can't believe how much we've actually accumulated by this point. But yeah, it's probably something I'm going to keep doing every so often when I feel like quite a bit has changed, because as she grows so will her equipment. So I'm definitely going to make this a little bit more vlog style. Like I said, I'm going to take you around the house, show you where we keep all of her equipment. At the moment I think everything is in its place, and why we keep it in a particular room, what we use it for, etc. So we're going to start out in Avery's bedroom, and I would definitely say this is the smallest room in the house. So we had a little bit of a challenge kind of working out how to get this room to be functional yet still look nice, because we want it to be a comfortable space for her and a peaceful space. It is where she sleeps every single night and she does sleep pretty well for the most part. I did do a video all about kind of what I did to her room and how I decorated it and whatnot, so check that one out, I will link it below. But the biggest piece of equipment that dominates this room for Avery is definitely her bed. This is Avery's bed, and I apologise at the minute, the clip is probably going to be horribly backlit because of the window, but I feel like I've managed to make it look as though it's not a special needs bed. I feel like I've done a pretty good job with that. However, under the valance sheets is a specialised bed. So this is the Darley bed short. They do a bigger version of this. This is the short because, like I said, Avery has a small room and she is only small, so she doesn't really need anything bigger, and she will definitely have plenty of room to grow in this. So you can probably see this kind of blue, it's like a blue waterproof sort of wipeable fabric, but under this the actual bed frame itself is actually metal. All of these bumpers here are kind of add-ons. Now we did get this on the NHS. This was arranged through Avery's community care nurse, and the reason why they thought that it was appropriate for Avery is because Avery has severe reflux. So again, apologies for how backlit this clip is, but I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but this bed is actually on an incline. So we have it at, I think it's around a 30-degree angle. I did get it checked by an occupational therapist and she agreed that she thought it was about a 30-degree angle because that is what's recommended for an incline. Anything more than that, you risk them kind of, you know, slipping down the bed. Anything less won't really be effective. Now, I can't really speak to whether it's been effective for Avery's reflux. Her reflux has always been very up and down, especially if her threshold is lowered, if she's poorly and whatnot. But the bed itself we really love, and as she gets older it's going to come in handy because not only does it tilt, it also goes up and down. So when she is bigger and all our poor backs are struggling to lift her, we can bring this all the way up so that she is at a much better level for us to be able to lift her out. For now she's still quite small, so it is okay as it is. But the back also raises up, so when she's older, if she's able to sit up any better and she wants to sit up in bed but she can't necessarily hold her weight herself, we can sit her up in the bed And again, that will also help with lifting her out of bed as well. So this is definitely a really good piece of equipment. It is on wheels, however they're all locked on their brakes at the moment. There is absolutely no point of having them on in this room because it is so small. But if we do move and she does get a bigger bedroom, then we are able to wheel the bed around the room if we need to as well. There is technically also another piece of equipment, or pieces of equipment, that are in the bed. So as you can probably see beneath the blanket, the bed looks very chunky, very bulky, and that is because Avery does have a sleep system. So you can probably see here there is basically a channel, and these are basically just, they're almost like padded wedges. I'll see if I've got a spare so I can show you. So this is what the little wedges look like. So they are essentially just a piece of plastic with some padding over the top to make it comfortable. And beneath all the sheets here on the very base of the bed, on the mattress, there is actually a sheet that can be velcro to. So these have velcro on the bottom, so we essentially stick these to the bottom sheet. There's multiple different pieces here to make really whatever shape we want to, and at the moment, because Avery is back lying, we just have it shaped so that there is a channel for her to lay in. And what that means is we can try and keep her body somewhat straight through the night. Like I said, Avery does have dystonia, which means she can get herself into all sorts of positions, and if she were to sleep in those positions over time, they just wouldn't be good for her overall posture. And I'm starting to learn just how important posture is when it comes to cerebral palsy and growing up and developing. So these stick to the bottom sheet. And then there is also like almost like a big waterproof padded mat that goes over the top of all of these for extra padding. And then, excuse if you keep hearing a buzz going off, it is because Avery's camera is there and it's detecting that there is motion in her room. And then over the top of that is this sheet here, and this is 100% breathable, so we don't need to worry if she gets her face caught in it. We have also moved these things around so that she can be side lying and she can't roll onto her tummy or, you know, roll onto her back. She kind of stays inside lying. We did that for a little while. There are all sorts of different pieces that come with the sleep system. These are just kind of one of them. We also have a headrest here. We started using this, but we quickly learned that we felt as though, because Avery couldn't turn her head, it just didn't seem right, it didn't sit right with us. And her occupational therapist and physio said we will kind of need to adjust as we go along, see what Avery likes, see what we're comfortable with. It's not, you know, it's not cut and dry for everybody. So this is the headrest. Normally it would be much more padded than this, but obviously Avery is only small and we didn't want her chin to her chest because that would have obstructed her breathing. We may go back to this, we may take some padding out and start weaning her back into this, but for now we're not using this. We've also got this roll here which we pop under her legs sometimes. Avery's left leg is worse than her right. Her knee kind of twists outwards and it is very tense and stiff. This is because of the spasticity and the tone with her cerebral palsy. So we use this sometimes to try and keep her legs straight, but what we found is the second Avery stirs in the night, which she does multiple times, she will just move her legs and this kind of becomes a little bit redundant. Avery is actually getting a pair of gaiters very, very soon, and these are going to be plastic gaiters, and I think the plan is for her to wear those at night, which should keep her legs in a somewhat straight position. That will be a big transition though. Like with a lot of this equipment, it's all a transition. She's not necessarily going to like it straight away. We do have to kind of build up a tolerance to almost everything, but so far the sleep system as it is, just having that channel there for her to sleep straight in, is going really well, and I can keep her somewhat straighter than she would be without the sleep system. The last piece we have for this sleep system is actually this knee brace, and again, this was to try and keep her legs straight. However, what we found is we think even this is too big for Avery. Avery has very, very slender legs, and I come in the morning and this is all the way down her ankles. So we're still figuring it out. It is still quite a new piece of equipment, but so far it is making somewhat of a positive effect because she's straight, and that essentially is the most important thing. The only other piece of equipment we have in this room is this contraption here. This is Avery's SATS monitor. So this essentially attaches to her foot. This is the probe here, and this wraps around her little foot, and as you can see her feet are still very, very, very tiny. That wraps around her foot, and then this will monitor her heart rate and her oxygen. So if I turn it on, obviously at the moment it won't really be showing any levels, but it turns on and her oxygen rate is here and then her heart rate is here, and I set this to settings every single night based on Avery, because obviously every child's baseline can be slightly different. So I know Avery's rough baseline for her oxygen and for her heart rate, so I can set it so if I feel like her heart rate goes too high. Okay, that is very strange because it's not actually attached to anything. There we go. And that is what will happen if Avery's oxygen dips or if her heart rate gets too high. It will alarm, and because we have a baby monitor which is in our bedroom, between hearing it from in here and also hearing it through the camera, it does wake us up if her alarm goes off. I believe this is the Massimo brand. Again, this is provided to us from the hospital. It isn't something we keep. As a matter of fact, pretty much all of this equipment is technically on loan. It will have to go back when Avery no longer needs it. I am obviously extremely grateful that we were born in the UK because we have the NHS, and we're very lucky that Avery has access to a lot of this equipment. But yeah, it does all have to go back when we're done with it. We don't get to keep it. It's not ours. It is on loan from the loan store through the NHS, and I think each county kind of has a budget for these things. So I feel like Avery's taken up quite a bit of the budget for the amount of equipment that she needs, but she needs it, and I absolutely feel no shame in her having what she needs. The SATS monitor is worth its weight in gold. It has actually potentially saved her life on numerous occasions. It has picked up where her oxygen's been low, so we've had to take her into hospital for oxygen. It has picked up a number of seizures, one of which she actually went into status for, 2 of which she's needed rescue medicine. So that could have potentially been really, really harmful to her. So that is 100% worth its weight in gold. We also have another SATS monitor. It's under the bed at the moment. We mainly pull that one out for travel just because it is more lightweight and smaller. We got that one from a charity called the Daisy Garland. Now when we came home we were on absolute tenterhooks. She wasn't diagnosed with epilepsy at this point, but we were on absolute tenterhooks that something was going to happen in the night. This obviously stems from the fact that, I say obviously if you are new here, Avery went into a cardiac arrest when she was 3 days old. She was born perfectly healthy, my pregnancy was healthy. She just went into a cardiac arrest, and at this point of time we still don't have a definitive answer as to what actually caused that. It could have been a number of things, but we don't know for sure. So we were on tenterhooks. We barely slept. We really, really, really struggled. At first we actually bought a Snoozer Hero MD. We bought that on Amazon, and I will say that is very, very helpful. That just clips to the nappy and it kind of makes clicks, but what we found was it was so quiet. Even when the alarm went off, it just wasn't enough to wake us up, and it got to the point where we were just not sleeping because we were so nervous. We've always been told that Avery would be a sitting duck for epilepsy because of the nature of her brain injury, so we reached out to this charity and they did actually provide us with the funding to get the first SATS monitor, because they are not cheap. As a matter of fact, medical equipment is in general is not cheap at all. It is very expensive, borderline extortionate, but I'm not going to go into that rant right now. But anyway, that charity was absolutely incredible. They were so helpful. All we needed was kind of a covering letter from Avery's epilepsy nurse. She did have one at the time, obviously, because she was a sitting duck for epilepsy, and not only that, she did have a lot of seizures in her acute stage when she was in hospital. So the Daisy Garland is essentially a charity that helps fund SATS monitors for children with epilepsy, because there are still a lot of children that can have seizures throughout the night that can go undetected, and if you have a child with epilepsy then you know that they can be very, very serious. So really, really, really grateful to that charity, and 100% recommend if you're in the position where you don't know where to go, what to look for. I know a lot of people still don't know about the Daisy Garland. I had never heard of them up until this point, but I've never needed to. So that's essentially it for actual medical equipment in Avery's room. We have obviously her baby monitor, her sound machine, but those are just standard things. They're not really anything to do with her medical side. Moving into the bathroom. This lovely contraption here is actually Avery's bath seat, and I'll try and demonstrate what it looks like in the bath. So it basically just sits on the bath frame like so. And if you watched my last video about Avery's equipment, you might remember that she had the splashy seat by Firefly, and that worked okay for a while. I will say, I think even with its kind of lowest setting for her to kind of lay back the most she could, it still wasn't brilliant for her posture. She was still quite floppy in it. But the reason why we had to change is because the splashy seat was actually too wide for this bath. The suction cups on the bottom didn't actually stick to the bottom, which made it unsafe. So her occupational therapist suggested this one. Now, I think this is actually a little bit more of an old-fashioned device, but we actually like it better. Avery likes it better. It suits her much more. So if you kind of take it off the lock here, you can lift this up. Whoops. Not if it's too close to the sink, but you can lift this up, and then the bath seat, the actual mesh, lowers into the bath, and that lowers Avery into the bath. So we can actually put her in it like this, just lay her down, and then we can lower her into the bath, which she absolutely loves. And because this is a mesh, it almost feels like a hammock for Avery, which I think is much more comfortable for her. It has Velcro straps so that we can strap her into it, so she's not going to go anywhere. But then when she's done with her bath, we can then lift her up like this and then get her out from here, which is much better on our backs. I'm not 100% sure what this is called. The name on the actual label says Bealift. Bealift, B-E-A-L-I-F-T. So Bealift, Bealift. I think that could be what it's called. I'm not 100%, but honestly, we love this. As ugly as it is, we absolutely love it. And I think what we do like as well is when she's done with it, because it is quite slim, it doesn't take up too much room in the bathroom. So its home is just here. We only have a small bathroom, so it kind of just lives there until she's bathed, and then we pull it out and then just put it back there when it's done. Still on the subject of the bathroom, but I have actually moved out of the bathroom just because it's not the nicest backdrop to see, is somebody else's toilet. Now again, this isn't technically equipment, but I do think it's worth mentioning, and I did mention these things not long ago. They are still very new to us, and it's Avery's new toothbrush and toothpaste. Now we are still trying this out, but I definitely think it is worth mentioning. So this is called the Collis Curve, and this is, I think, the infant size. They do different sizes, but essentially this is a toothbrush, but instead of just having the regular bristles, it's actually curved, as you can see. So there are two sets of bristles that go around each side and almost form like a dome. I'm not sure how well you can see it. There we go, that's a little bit better. So you can almost see how they curve, and then in between those curves there is also another little set of bristles on the bottom. And essentially what that means is we only need to take one pass at Avery's teeth, and this will brush the front, the back and the top. Because Avery has weak coordination and poor swallow, and essentially it's unsafe if anything goes into her mouth, we find it really difficult to brush her teeth properly. And even now, even with this, it's still not the easiest, but at least we can kind of take comfort knowing that we're getting all areas of her teeth, only having to brush her teeth for a short amount of time. So that is her toothbrush. And then they also gave us this Aura Nurse toothpaste. This is unflavoured and it's non-foaming, so it's better for children with perhaps more kind of conditions that affect their sensory input, I suppose. So children that maybe don't like flavours or don't like the feel of foaming toothpaste. For Avery, it's a safety thing. If she has toothpaste that's foaming, that's essentially more to be in her mouth for her to struggle with. I definitely thought it was just worth mentioning these two. Moving into the kitchen, like I said, Avery is G-tube fed. She is nil by mouth, 100% G-tube fed. So naturally, a lot of her things are housed in the kitchen. So I just thought I'd show you how we store it all and what she has. Again, I have kind of touched upon this in vlogs, particularly when we moved into this house, but I just want it all in one place, in one video, just so you can see basically how we function around all of Avery's equipment. This is Avery's feeding pump and stand. This is the Frigo by Abbott, and really the only positive thing I have to say about this is it feeds Avery. It's a source for her food. Other than that, I hate it. We used to have one from Freeland. We had the Freeland Amica, I think it was, and we absolutely loved that one, got along fine with it. This one always has occlusion messages telling us that it's blocked when we know it's not, and we've just had non-stop issues with it. However, This is what the NHS have contract with at the moment, so this is kind of what we make do with. Our only alternative would be to outsource a pump, and then I think Avery's dietitian wouldn't really be able to suggest anything with it because this is what they are working with, this is what they're contracted to. So like I said, we make do. It comes on this stand, which is just a metal frame. It is very flimsy. Again, our old pump had a much better stand, but I'm just complaining. But essentially you just turn it on, you prime it, that's it, turning on. When it's on, we just prime it. It's already set to her settings, so at the moment Avery has 160 millilitres of her feed, and she has that 4 times a day, and it runs over half an hour. So that's all set up to her settings. It's all ready to go each time we need to feed her. Now we get deliveries, sorry if you can hear that, that's a train going by. We get her deliveries for her feed and her giving sets and whatnot every month. So as you can imagine, that is quite a lot of stuff. So I'll show you how we store it. Down here is where we keep all of her everyday items, I suppose. So we have a big stock of giving sets. These are the giving sets that go along with the pump, and this is basically the tube. One end attaches to the feed, one end attaches to Avery's extension set on her G tube, and that is how she's fed. And then down here we have a stock of Avery's feed. We go through about 2 bottles of this a day, so we need to keep a lot of it. And then we also just keep the charger for the pump down here. That is what this is down here. I will get to these things in just a minute. In this cupboard here is where we just keep the surplus of things. So down on that bottom shelf, you might just be able to see it, is the surplus of feed. And then in these boxes up here are where we keep the surplus of giving sets. And this unit, I absolutely love it because it actually hides all of her surplus stuff. Before this, we just had to keep it all in boxes. Moving on to what is down here. So this is kind of just a collection of lots of different bits and bobs. We've got some Pea Pod, so if we feel like Avery's G-tube is maybe getting a bit inflamed and we need to be extra clean with it. I mean, we do use cool boiled water at the moment, but if we feel like we need to be extra clean with it, we have some sterile water. We've also got some sterile water. We use this, maybe we have run out of cool boiled water and we need to wait for it to cool down, but Avery needs to be flushed, then we can use this. It's just good to have a little bit of a backup. We've got Tegaderm here, which is what used to stick Avery's NG tube to her face. We don't need this now, however we do find that if, say, we're travelling and we need to stick Avery's extension set down to her stomach so that it doesn't pull, these do come in really handy. We've just got an excess of what we had when Avery had her NG tube and we've hung on to it. It's still within its expiry date. A little pair of scissors, they always come in handy. Lots of appeal wipes. These get rid of sticky residue from her tapes. We have pH strips. We need to use these when we change Avery's G-tube button. When we change her G-tube button, we just have to make sure that it's gone into the right place, and we test it to make sure it's in her stomach. So the acidity of the fluid that comes out will tell us where it is in her body or if it's in her stomach. We've got some micropore tape, again comes in handy for sticking the tube down. We have a pill crusher because now and again Avery does have a pill form of medicine that needs to be crushed. Sorry, that's not a crusher, that's a cutter. So if she's having half a tablet as a dose, then we can cut that in half. So that's that box. In this box here, it is just a surplus of Avery's syringes, and I'll get to her syringes in a minute. This box keeps all of her, if I can get it out, all of her suction machine supplies. So I will show you her suction machine in a minute, but this is just extra tubes, extra bags, extra yankers. These are sick bags, which one of you guys very kindly sent to us, and believe it or not, they have come in handy. And then this is the next piece of equipment to show you. This is Avery's nebulizer. So the reason why it's tucked away is because we don't need to use it every day, luckily, but this is worth its weight in gold when Avery is poorly. So this is kind of the unit itself, and then it attaches to a tube which attaches to this mask, and this mask is what goes over, oops, This mask is what goes over her nose and mouth, and this gets filled with a saline solution which we get from our GP. And when she's poorly, we give her a blast of the nebulizer for about 10 minutes, and it just helps to loosen secretions. So if she's poorly and maybe her mucus is a bit thick, or it seems as though it's getting stuck on her chest or kind of in her upper respiratory area, this just helps to loosen it all. And then we usually use her suction machine and some chest physio to try and help her bring that up. But for now, we just keep it in that cupboard down there with all of Avery's other bits. It's all together then. Moving on to these two cupboards here. These both belong to Avery. So in the first one is where we keep mostly all of Avery's medicines. So up here, these are her daily meds. These are a backup for when we run out of the ones we're using. We have found we do need to keep a backup because there's been tons of times where we've been close to running out and we nearly didn't get a replacement in time. So we like to keep a bit of a backup just in case. Up here are meds that maybe we don't use as often. Colic drops, Piriton, paracetamol suppositories, just in case she's not keeping paracetamol down, things like that. And then in these tubs here are the things we use on the daily. So these are her daily syringes. These are kind of on rotation in between here and the sink and the drying rack. These are her daily medicines, so she has pretty much all of these every single day apart from paracetamol and ibuprofen, which we use as needed. In this little one here, we've got all of the lids to her water bottles and then caps there for if we are out of the house and we need to put caps on her syringes. And then in this one, we keep enough cool boiled water for the day. Obviously cool boiled water is no longer sterile after 24 hours, so we redo those every 24 hours. And then in this one is all of Avery's backup syringes. So we go through syringes like mad, as you can probably imagine. They don't last a lot of time. When you wash them a few times, the numbers start to wear off or the plunger starts to play up and it gets very stiff. So I'm quite pleased with my little system here, although it looks a little bit messy at the moment. I've just got these little bins that I got from Amazon and I've labelled them all with what type of syringe they are. So we've got 1ml, 20ml, 3ml, Lua tip, which is what we use to replace the water in Avery's G-tube, 5ml and 60ml, and then these are all of her bottles. Whoops. We have a bit of a collection of these. I think some I've ordered on Amazon, but a lot of them we actually have from when Avery was in hospital. So at that time I was expressing, and luckily they provided me with everything I needed for expressing. Obviously at that time it was very traumatic, very stressful, and the hospital does do a really good job at trying to make you feel as comfortable as possible. So I ended up building up a bit of a stockpile of these bottles. She is no longer getting express breast milk anymore, obviously, but we still keep the bottles because they come in very handy for her water. And then up here we've just got some pots. A little while ago we trialled a blended diet, and that is essentially what those were for. Hopefully we will go back to it at some point in the future, which is why I have kept them. The only other thing that lives in the kitchen is Avery's pushchair and what is in the pushchair. So if I move Avery's baby bag, this is the Special Tomato EIO pushchair. This is a specialised pushchair for special needs children. This is not through the NHS, we do own this, however we did get funding for this. I think the charity that we used for this one was New Life. Once again, anything special needs seems to have a much higher price point on it. I did contribute some money towards this though, so I did pay part of this. I donated part of the money towards this. I don't really know why they call it a donation, because technically I was just paying for part of it, but then they helped fund the rest. Again, I did need sort of covering letters from professionals to say why she needed this. So this is the pushchair itself. The seat inside it does not come with the pushchair. The seat inside it is the Special Tomato sitter. And this one we do not own. This one is on loan. The base is in the living room, which I will show you in a minute. However, this is essentially Avery's form of postural support sitting at the moment. Now, in my last equipment video, you would have seen the expander. The expander is no longer because we could never get Avery to tolerate it. What we found is the very, very structured equipment that have to strap her in all different places and keep her very beautifully postured she will not tolerate. So we've really had to find a happy medium between the two. We need to support her posture, but there is absolutely no point in it if she acts as though it's a torture device. So the pushchair itself actually comes with a number of these wedges, which essentially go down the sides here to provide some postural support. So for most children it will help keep them straight. However, what we found with Avery is that because she is so slender, this didn't support her posture at all. There was still quite a gap between this and her, so it wasn't really supporting her posture, and we needed something a little bit extra. So we decided to put her sitter in here. One, because it obviously gives her more support in the pushchair, and two, because she doesn't particularly like being in a seat, she definitely prefers to be on the floor. I find that she actually gets more use out of it in the pushchair. We are out and about for appointments all the time, so she does get more use out of it. It's helping her build a tolerance to it, and it's otherwise time that would essentially just be her in the pushchair. So in the meantime, she's getting some good postural support. This here is actually part of a newborn insert I bought from Amazon a really long time ago. I was about to throw it out or, you know, put it on Facebook Marketplace. However, when the rep came to fit her for the sitter, we realised that maybe she needed a little bit more head support, and I suggested this, and it's actually worked really, really well. So this actually came in two parts. I'm not using the bottom part because we don't need it. I just pop this here, and these two flaps here go either side of her shoulders or either side of her neck, and it just helps keep her head straight, and it's also a nice bit of cushion for her. The stroller itself I do really, really like in terms of it being a special needs stroller. It's obviously much bigger and bulkier than a bog standard pushchair. However, we have actually had the R82 Stingray as an adapted stroller before, and again, this is much like the Xpander. It's very, very structured. It was incredibly heavy. I could have dealt with how heavy it was. However, once again, Avery could not tolerate it. We tried and we tried and we tried, and she absolutely hated it. And there's just no point. So for us, it's really been about finding the balance of how can we support Avery's posture as best we can with her not screaming her head off the entire time she's in it, because that's just going to stress her out. It could potentially trigger more dystonia, which is painful. It could trigger her seizures. So we've really had to find a balance, and it's been a lot of trial and error. Between this and the Stingray, we did just use a regular pushchair, which, you know, it worked as a pushchair, but it wasn't supporting her posture whatsoever. So this has been really, really handy. I've really been enjoying it. I have also tried out the special tomato jogger. If you are on the market for a special needs pushchair, I have tried out the jogger as well. I will say the jogger is more lightweight. I think in terms of the seat itself, it is very similar to the EIO. I think the EIO is just more of an everyday pushchair. The jogger is definitely more lightweight. So if you are kind of on foot a lot of the time, the jogger might be a good option. But I really, really like this. I'm really grateful that she has it. It does come with a rain cover and a shopping trolley beneath as well. So it's functional as a normal pushchair, but Avery does get some posture support in it. So happy with that one, and for now that is essentially what we will use until we can get Avery to tolerate something more structured, more like an actual wheelchair, because this is basically her wheelchair at the moment. She's 2.5. Neurotypical 2.5-year-olds can normally walk by now. Avery can't, so it is classed as her wheelchair, but it is technically a stroller. Moving into the living room, and I've got my little helper with me now. Good day. So if you are new to my channel, then this is Avery, the little madam in question. So this is Avery's stander, and if I move you back just a little bit, I am a bit one-handed now that I've got little madam in my arms. But this is Avery's stander. This is the Jenks stands. It has all been adjusted to meet Avery's height. It was actually readjusted yesterday because she has grown a little bit. So the tray can come off and on. She doesn't need to use it with the tray, and to be honest, most of the time we don't. The physio does say that normally the tray can help with spatial awareness, just because it can feel a little bit odd being in it without something in front of you. But Avery seems to tolerate it just fine without the tray. And normally the way I get her to tolerate it is by taking her around the house with me and kind of doing little jobs like the dishes, things like that. And if she's able to watch me doing different things, it keeps her just occupied enough to actually stay in it. The target is for 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, which I'm not gonna lie, we're up and down on that target. Some days I can get her in it every weekday, some days it's a little bit different. Avery is just recovering from a cold, so she hasn't been in it as much this week. But essentially what this does is just helps her bear weight onto her legs through her hips, just to try and keep her hips developing properly, because with cerebral palsy, particularly if it's severe like Avery's, the chances are, because of her tone and because she's not bearing weight through her legs, there is a chance that her hips may not develop properly and she may develop hip dysplasia, which apparently can be quite common for children with cerebral palsy. Now, I'm not a doctor, this is all just things that I've learnt along the way with Avery. At the moment her hips are fine, we've had that confirmed with x-rays. However, her left leg is a little bit worse in terms of tone, which I mentioned when we were upstairs. This could potentially cause effects on her hips, so it is quite important that we keep getting her to bear weight through her legs just to try and keep her hips in the right form. And we are also expecting Botox for Avery's leg, just to try and get that to straighten out a little bit more, because as she gets older and bigger, really it is only going to get worse unless we manage it. Apologies that my head is literally cut off at the moment. Little madam is not the easiest little one to hold, hence the equipment. And this is what I mean by equipment will kind of adapt as she gets older. So at the moment she is still small enough to carry, but because of her dystonia, because of her movements, it's not going to be long before it's not quite safe for me to be able to carry her all of the time, which is why it's important that we start getting her to tolerate certain pieces of equipment so there are safe places for me to put her. There will be developments, like I said, things will grow as she gets older. I don't know how many times I've had to say that already, but I really can't preface it enough. So as she gets bigger, she may need much more, I want to say, invasive on the home equipment, things like hoists, potentially lifts, stair lifts, things like that, because at some point Avery is going to be too heavy to lift all the time, which is a sad thought, but unfortunately it is the truth. But moving back to the stander, you'll probably see these little things on top of the tray. These are Avery's splints. These go on her feet and they just help keep her foot and ankle in a good position when she is bearing weight onto her feet. And the way her orthotics technician explained it is it's helping her get a good base for her feet, because naturally Avery will go on her tiptoes. Again, apparently that is something that is quite common because she is looking for that strong sensory feedback. And then she also has her shoes. These are Billy boots, and these were very, very kindly gifted to us again by one of you guys, and I can't thank you enough. They have come in so handy. She wears them every single time she wears her splints. They do give her a really good base for her feet. So the stander itself is quite a contraption. There are an awful lot of straps. There is a strap at her hips, a strap just above her hips under her armpits, straps on her knees, and then straps on her feet, and that just keeps her nice and safe and secure in there. Obviously she would not be able to stand on her own, so if those straps weren't there she would just fall out of it. So it is all just for safety and making sure that her posture is all correct and she is straight in it. So I've just popped Avery down so you might actually hear her shouting. That is happy noises, by the way. I could definitely tell if she was unhappy. So moving on to this pile here, which has definitely turned into a bit of a pile. Honestly, I need to figure out a better system for this stuff. So this on the bottom here is the base for the special tomato sitter that is now in her pushchair. So it wheels along, and this base with the sitter on it is actually the setup that she has in nursery. So she does have one of these in nursery, and that is mainly because that is the only sitter that she will tolerate that will give her some form of posture support. On it we have a number of things. The first one being this. This is a neck support. Now, I'm not going to lie, we don't use it that much because Avery just doesn't seem to like it. But essentially it goes around her neck like this. It clips into place and then it just stops her head from flopping forward. She doesn't seem to tolerate it very well. But I know that this can be really good for a lot of children. Apparently, if you want to change the colour of this, you can just use normal long socks. One of you guys told me that, which I thought is very, very cool to know, because if Avery did use this often and we did use it out and about, I would definitely replace the blue with some nice pretty socks. And I mean, to be honest, looking at them, they do look like socks. They probably are socks, to be fair. And these things are Avery's temporary gaiters. I mentioned earlier that she's going to be getting a pair of custom gaiters for when she's sleeping. These ones are what she has in the meantime. Now, these are soft, so she can wear them in the day. However, her custom ones will be made of plastic. She's not going to be able to wear those ones in the day. Okay, now she's decided she doesn't want to be put down. Because of her dystonia, Avery's physio has actually told me that if she were to wear the plastic ones in the day, her dystonic movements may get strong enough to the point where she could potentially hurt herself, even break bones in them. So the plastic ones are definitely going to be for nighttime only, when she's relaxed and not dystonic. But these ones we can use in the day, and essentially these just wrap around her legs and strap her legs to try and keep them straight. Again, it is more of an issue with her left leg than her right leg. But it is just to try and keep her knees facing forward and her legs straight so that she's not always bent out at the hip. And then underneath the gaiters we have her Firefly go-to seat. Now, this again is another one of the things that we do own. We got this one through Family Fund, which again is another organisation that provides grants to families with special needs children for things that they may need, because once again, special needs equipment is expensive. Anyway, this is basically just another form of a postural support seat. It's not the best postural support, particularly for Avery, and I think that is purely because of her frame. She is very long but very slender. I think if she was a bit more plump, it would work much better, but it still does serve a really good purpose, or it did. She is starting to grow out of it now because she is getting a little bit taller. But what I've loved about the go-to seat is it's given us the ability to adapt certain things to be able to include Avery in them. So for example, we've put this in a baby swing seat before at a park, and that just meant that she's actually able to use it. So normally with a baby swing seat, there's no way she could sit in it, not on her own. So we would need to go on a normal swing seat with Avery on our laps, but if we pop this in the swing seat, which we have done, then strap her into this, it means that she can then go in that swing by herself. Same with shopping trolleys. Avery would never be able to sit in one of the kind of children's seat in a shopping trolley, but we can actually fit this into that seat, which then means Avery can sit in that seat and then go in the shopping trolley. Same with restaurants. If you're going out to a restaurant, Avery wouldn't be able to sit in a regular high chair, but we can strap this to a regular chair and then she can sit at the table with us. So it has definitely been really, really handy, and I would 100% recommend one of these, particularly for kind of out and about and day-to-day life. Yeah, did you like your go-to seat? But sadly, she is getting a little bit too big for this one. This is a size 1. They do have bigger sizes, but like I said, they are quite expensive. And when she is too big for this, like when she's definitely grown out of it and we know that we're definitely not going to get any more use out of it, I probably will donate this to Little Harbour, which is the children's hospice that we use. They're always happy for donations, particularly for stuff like this. The next piece of equipment is this right here. This is Avery's suction machine, and I do apologise in advance, especially if you are squeamish. This one is in use at the moment. Like I said, Avery's coming towards the end of a cold, which means it has had lots of use over the last week. So basically all this does is really suction. So we turn it on, and then this is the yanker, and you just kind of hold the hole there, and then you can use that as a sucker basically. So This is once again one of those things that are worth its weight in gold. So if Avery has had a nebulizer and all of her secretions are loose, she still may struggle to bring those up, and then what she tends to do is swallow them back down, which essentially is just a vicious cycle because she struggles with the swallow. Using that, we can actually suck it all out. The same if she is coughing up some gunk. Sometimes her reaction isn't to spit it out, but it's to try and swallow it back down, which then can cause more congestion on her lungs. So we use this to be able to suck it out. If she has a blocked nose or, you know, a snotty nose, we use it. It's just worth its weight in gold in so many different ways, and it is definitely necessary for Avery. I'm sorry that literally all you're doing is just staring at that right now. The reason being, I am down here trying to use my other hand, keeping this madam happy. So this is generally what happens whenever I try to film in the living room without Avery sat on my lap being fed or something, because Avery loves the TV, and this here is her favourite spot. Now, yeah, this is definitely not a piece of medical equipment. This is a play gym from Love Every, and I've spoken about this tons of times before on my channel, but we love it. This is Avery's safe space. It is her sanctuary. Avery loves nothing more than to lay in this play gym in front of the TV, and once again, I have no shame in this because Avery cried and cried and cried for almost the first year of her life, and we just couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then she discovered TV, and TV has always been that bit of time where she is happy, she's calm and she's settled. So I know that if at the end of a therapy session or if she's on my lap and she is unsettled, I can bring her to her safe space, put Mr. Bean on for her, which is her program of choice at the moment, and she will be happy and calm, and her dystonia will settle for a little while. And that is so important to me, knowing that she can get that little bit of a break and relaxation. But I do wish it was something else that did that for her, I am not gonna lie, instead of TV. The reason why she's still fussy, by the way, is because the TV's on mute so she can see it but she can't hear it. But we still have one more thing to show everyone. One more thing! We still have one more thing! Yes, we do! The last piece of equipment we have in the living room is this one right here. This is Avery's Pea Pod, and I have been asked by someone on Instagram before what we use as a form of seating for Avery to just be able to lounge in and relax in. It isn't too structured, and this is it. This is a Pea Pod, and again, it's just another form of seating, but instead of being overly structured, this one is definitely much more relaxed, and we use this every single morning. So as you can imagine, my mornings are hectic with 3 children. Avery is still due a feed in the morning. So this is where she is fed in the morning. So Avery needs to be upright when she's having her feeds, that is a given, but more so because she has reflux, and this is perfect. So it gives her just enough support with this liner in the top to make sure that she's in a good position. She is fairly straight, but it doesn't have a whole lot of postural support, I'm not gonna lie. That isn't really what it's for. This is just a safe seat for her to be in where she can actually feel relaxed. And she's modelling it beautifully, aren't you, Pudding? This is a size 2. They do have one size smaller than this, and I know that they have sizes bigger than this because we've used them at Little Harbour, haven't we? She will very soon grow out of this one. As you can probably tell, her head is all the way at the top now. But I'd probably say this is our favourite seat. And then when we are not using it, because like with most of her things, it is quite bulky. When we're not using it, we usually just tuck it away next to the sofa, and that is kind of where it lives. These can come with a base on wheels as well. They do have those at Little Harbour, so it can be wheeled around. However, the base just makes the whole thing even bigger. It makes it massive, and for right now we don't really need the base. This isn't something that we need to wheel around the house. If I'm going to wheel Avery around the house for her to do things with me, I'd rather it be in the stander, because at least then she's getting that therapy. So mostly we use this in the mornings when we're in the middle of the morning rush and Avery's being fed, or if I absolutely have to get something done at the same time that Avery's feed is due, I'll also use this, because I know that it's somewhere safe that she can be in, where she is elevated and she can have her feed and she's safe in it. Anyway, I am going to return Avery to Mr. Bean because apparently she prefers him to me now. And just like that, she is happy again. So I think that is pretty much all of the equipment that we have at the moment. Like I said, it will keep changing as she gets older. But I hope you enjoyed it and was able to take some information away from this video. I know for one how overwhelming the thought of all of this equipment in your home can be, particularly if you are a neat freak like me, but I've definitely had to kind of adjust to having all of these extra brightly coloured things in the house. But like I said before, no two children are the same, so these are just the things that work for Avery, and I definitely think on this journey it's going to take some element of trial and error. It definitely has for her, for us. So please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, or if you found it useful or helpful in any way. And hit the subscribe button if you would like to follow us along on our journey. I post every week, twice a week, and share all about our life and our journey as a special needs family. So with that said, I'll see you guys in a few days with another video. Bye guys.